Welcome to Rhode Island Time Capsule. I'm Mark Kenny. I'm joined by Steve Stone. Steve and I are from the Portsmouth Historical Society. And today we're joined by renowned Portsmouth historian, Gloria Schmidt. Gloria, congratulations on the United Way Award.
Thank you very much.
Very well earned.
Gloria, what is your background and or profession?
Well, my background is that I've always been a lover of history. I was a history major in college, and I was trained as a social studies teacher. But I ended up with library science, and I was librarian at Elmhurst School. And the thing that I found history to be a very important tool in teaching kids how to do research. So especially with the fourth graders, we always did a research project. The students selected what they were interested in, and we worked on that all year, and we usually produced something like a book, or it could have been a mural for the library wall.
Yeah.
So I started off doing that. I guess because I'm a librarian, I like to have hard copies of things. So I started doing that. And after I retired, I was working with the Portsmouth Historical Society as on the curators committee and on the board. So I started researching local history, and in 2012 I started a blog called PortsmouthHistoryNotes.com, and that's kind of a tool that I use whenever I'm researching. It's no fun to know about it if you can't share it. So Portsmouth History Notes is like my notebook on all the variety of things, especially about Portsmouth, but now a lot about the Revolutionary War that I'm researching, and that helps me focus and communicate what I've been learning to others.
Very, very good.
Very good, Gloria. I'm not a Portsmouth native, but since moving here, I've just been amazed by the range of history of the town, including by looking at Portsmouth's history notes. Can you kind of do a wave-top review for us of some of the highlights of Portsmouth's history?
We have a very unique history, and we were the second town in Rhode Island to be founded. Providence was the first. We were the second. And we were founded as a result of what had happened to Anne Hutchinson in Boston. And so Boston was what you call a theocracy. Everything was centered around the church and the ministers there. And Anne Hutchinson was a person that believed that you didn't just go through the minister, that God talked to each one of us. And that was kind of threatening. So Anne and a whole group of people founded Portsmouth to get away from that. They were thrown out of Boston, but there were a whole lot of people that came with her. So our founding was a little different. We were always focused on religious tolerance, religious freedom. So in the beginning, you had a lot of agreeing to disagree. People would support each other in their faith. If you had someone that believed that Saturday was the holy day, and you had a market, they would change the rules so that there was a market on Wednesday too. So we were always kind of a tolerant, especially as far as religion is concerned. There really wasn't a church building in Portsmouth for a long time because people kind of worshipped in their homes and things like that. But Portsmouth was, the next year after Portsmouth was founded, a group that really wanted to focus on commerce and shipping, and the merchant group went to Newport because it was a much better harbor. But Portsmouth became what it has been for many, many years, and that is a farming community, the breadbasket. The farms were here, and so we were always, because we're an island, we were always kind of close in with what was happening in Newport, and then later Middletown was founded, and Newport was kind of cut in half. And so Portsmouth has been a farming community. Portsmouth farming is very important to me as I do the research. And you had the Yankee farmers first, and like Leonard Brown, the Brown house at the Glen. And then you had people that were coming in as Portuguese farmers. They came in and took over when the children of the Yankee farmers didn't want to continue to be farmers. And we had something very special. We had gentleman farms, the Vanderbilts, the Taylors, the others that they may have had their house in, elegant house in Newport, but they had their farm, and they were very competitive about farming. So we had all those things going on. We had a lot, we had a Civil War presence with Lovell Hospital, and that was in the Melville area. And we had definitely a Revolutionary War presence. We have Butts Hill Fort, which is the largest earthenwork Revolutionary fort on the East Coast, and we're trying to bring that back from being overgrown. And we had a Battle of Rhode Island happened in Portsmouth. The whole of Portsmouth was a battlefield. Portsmouth was very important later on in women's suffrage. We had a whole group in Bristol Ferry that people like Sarah Eddy and Julia Ward Howe, who kind of fed that movement. We had just about every segment of Rhode Island history. We have a very unique touch for Portsmouth history. So if you look at Portsmouth history, there's always something interesting, no matter what time period you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One quick follow-on to that is I was really surprised. I'd never heard of the Liberty incident, which I thought was fascinating. Could you talk to that for a minute?
Sure. Well, the Liberty story actually starts in Boston. And the Liberty was a boat that John Hancock, which is a famous name, we know him with the Declaration of Independence. But he was a merchant in the Boston area, and the British started really cutting down on smuggling, and that was to the detriment of a lot of the merchants, because they needed trade. They needed to be able to sell their wares and bring in other things. And so a ship that was brought in by the British to prevent smuggling captured the Liberty, and John Hancock was accused of smuggling. John Adams defended him, and he won his case that he was not a smuggler. However, the British had already taken the Liberty off, and it became a customs ship for the British. So the next appearance of that is in Newport, and these ships are given permission to do just about everything. They can go on aboard any ship to inspect it. They can go and take seamen off of the streets in Newport and make them seamen on their ships. So the Liberty was not well liked in the area, and when there were problems with that, there was the Newport residents were not really happy with that, and they showed that they were able to get the ship and tear down the masts, and they ended up burning some of the boats that went with it. There's on Equality Park there is a memorial that says that this is one location where one of the ships for the Liberty. But this was way before the Gaspee. So we have a heritage here that people don't know about. We had some of the first shots fired in the Revolutionary War off of Goat Island. And again, when you had these pesky customs ships, at that time the governor was a man named Stephen Hopkins, who would later on be signing the Declaration of Independence. And Stephen Hopkins was, and his group, there was a ship that I think it was the Maidstone. That might not be the one, but there was a ship that was really trying to intervene in all the shipping in the merchants, and so there were cannons. There was a little fort. It was called Fort George, that was off of the Rhode Island, and they ordered the gunner to fire at this ship, and the gunner did. He 8 to 14 shots. It kind of varies as to whose account you have, and the ship was able to get away. But in the meantime, some people will say these were the first shots fired for the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
So we have a lot of little stories like that we need to get out Rhode Island's role in the Revolutionary War, because a lot of times we're kind of skipped over. But we have a very interesting history.
Yeah, that was informative. That was very nice. When did you become involved with the Battle of Rhode Island?
Well, I was on the curators committee of the Portsmouth Historical Society. And at that particular time, I think Craig Clark was the vice president. He's the president now. Mm-hmm. And he was getting inquiries from people in different states asking about the fort. And we decided to have an event there to make people aware of it, because it had really gotten in disrepair. It's owned by the town of Portsmouth. And it was in fairly good shape in the 70s, but there was a lot of invasive growth and trees and so forth, that when you've got an earthenwork fort, you've got the roots of trees and vegetation, that's going to disturb the earthenworks and destroy those works. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to make people aware of it. Jim Garman came and spoke, and we had other people bringing people around so that they would see the fort, just to highlight it. And out of that came a real interest in preserving Butts Hill Fort. And we started to try and do that with the Historical Society, but when you're trying to both apply for the same grants and things like that, it becomes rather sticky. Mm-hmm. So the Battle of Rhode Island Association was formed to be kind of the umbrella organization, and I think it was like in 2021. And we have two purposes. One is to resurrect the fort, and Paul Murphy is doing a tremendous job of spearheading that effort. And the other is to make known Rhode Island's role in the Revolutionary War. So that's the two prongs of what we're doing. And so we're raising money, hopefully to have the equipment and so forth that we can get more of the fort. We have the southern portion of the fort that's been done. It looks beautiful. You can really see it now from the high school, and from that side we need to do the north, but that requires money for equipment and things like that. And so we've been financing things like an archaeology program there, so we're learning more about with the use of archaeology equipment. We can't dig, it's a preserved site, but they can use other ways of learning about the structure of the fort, and yet we're going out to schools. We have the tours that we've been taking 3 times. We've taken the students from the AP American History course to various sites where the battle of Rhode Island was fought, and bring them back to Butts Hill Fort at the end. So we've been doing that. We have a website, battleofrhodeisland.org, where we're trying to post all these things. We have sponsored things like speakers. So there are all kinds of different topics that have very professional articles by noted historians. We have paid for someone who is an expert on the French to go and look at the archives of the engineers who designed, the French engineers who designed parts of the fort. And so we're getting kinds of sources of information that are new, they're fresh. We've never seen these things before. So the battleofrhodeisland.org is a place where we're placing all these things so people can learn more about the battle in Rhode Island and the Revolutionary War.
Very interesting.
Yeah, kind of to continue that thought for families, students, teachers that want to get more involved, want to help support these efforts, the battleofrhodeisland.org, Portsmouth History Notes.
Yeah.
Just the Portsmouth History Notes I thought was remarkable. Can you elaborate a little more in terms of the content and how people can use that?
Sure. Portsmouth History Notes is like my personal notebook of the things that I research. In the beginning, when I was on the curators committee, Marge and I, the curator, Marge Webster and I, would pick a topic to do a display on. So we had to research all during the winter as to what the subject was or what happened. It could be ferries or bridges or women or different topics. So I started doing it that way, and I can organize my thoughts. If I do the research and then I have to present it to people, then I get I integrate it. I get it in a form where it's there from my memory, but it's also there so that people who are researching topics in Portsmouth history can look it up. There's a little, looks like a spyglass in the right corner where you could put in a topic, whether it's, you talked about pirates or coal mines or different things, and that will take you to the blogs. I have 527 blogs since 2012, and they're on all different topics. So whatever I was researching, that's the way I organized my notes and thoughts.
And if folks want to contribute to help restore the fort, help with the history packages for teachers, how do they go about doing that?
Well, you can. There's actually an address on Portsmouth on battleofrhodeisland.org. There's a PayPal on that if people want to use that. They could contact me under Portsmouth History Notes. They could just write a note there if they have a particular question, because I'm trained as a librarian, so I tend to function as a reference librarian. I get a lot of people that have relatives of some of the founders in Portsmouth or some of the people that I've researched, and so that becomes a way that we can communicate back and forth. That was one family in particular that was really interesting, and I ended up really talking back and forth with the family, is that after the Civil War, the Friends community here in Portsmouth had an outreach to former slaves. And there was a gentleman named Mr. Joseph Macomber. His house was just destroyed a little bit ago, yeah. And he had a farm. He was a really good Portsmouth farmer. And he brought 12 freed slaves to Portsmouth. And he set them up. He provided jobs for them in the beginning. They were able to buy their own farms and became some of the best farmers in Portsmouth. And so I was researching that family. They were the Eilers or Ehlers. And the family now has moved mostly to the Boston area. But when they came across my notes about their families, et cetera, they were overjoyed, because no one had researched their family like that or seen that connection. And I think for Portsmouth, it's a really good story because these people were really integrated into our Portsmouth community and one of them was one of the founders of the Portsmouth Free Public Library. So it's just kind of interesting. I kind of see things in Portsmouth history like a weaving. And you have people that are woven into some of our stories and into somebody else's story. So we kind of have an opportunity to see the whole cloth sometimes.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Very interesting. Could you tell us how long you have been involved with the Portsmouth Historical Society?
I've been involved with the Portsmouth Historical Society since about the year 2000. And the first thing that I did was actually, we had some documents there, and there was coming up on, in 2003, we had a reenactment of the Battle of Rhode Island. So we were doing some transcriptions of Revolutionary War documents. We don't have many in Portsmouth because when the British occupied the island, the town couldn't function. And so you didn't have any town council notes or anything else. And so all the records were taken off. But there were a few things that were before and a few things after the British left. So I was working on that, and then I worked with projects at my school. We did something on one-room schools, and my students interviewed some of the Portsmouth Historical Society members that had gone to one-room schools in Portsmouth. So that's how I got started, and then after I retired, I was able to spend more time as on the curators committee, and we did that. We were on the board for a while too. Now we're docents.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
If we could circle back one more time to Portsmouth's history notes, like I said, the range of topics there is amazing, even murder. Can you talk about the colonial era murder in Portsmouth?
Well, the famous one is the Cornell murder, and that was 1673. The Cornells had a farm that was by where the restaurant is, the Valley Inn. That is on the footprint of where the old Cornell house was.
Okay.
And the Cornells had a very strong relationship with Anne Hutchinson. And when Anne Hutchinson went to the Bronx, they actually went with her. And then I think people know that Anne and her family were wiped out. There was one child that was left, that was Susanna. Yep. But the Cornells came back to Portsmouth and were given that large grant of land that's off of West Main Road and to the water there. And the problem was that the mother was elderly. Her son would love to have been his own man, managing his own farm, but his mother was there. And so that set up a situation where people thought that maybe he wasn't treating his mother well. And so the time came when I think it was in February, it was cold out. There were a lot of people in a very small house. And Mrs. Cornell was found to have been burned and was dead from that. And so the inquest, what they did at that time was people, the neighbors would come in and they would take a look at the body, et cetera, and they would decide, was this an accident, was this something else? And they decided at the time that it was an accident. That happened all the time. Women would have their clothing catch on fire. She smoked a pipe. There was no reason to believe that there was anything else. And then her brother, John Briggs, had a dream a couple of nights after that. And in the dream, he saw his sister come to him and say, "See how I was burned. See how I was burned." So that raised questions, because in those days, if you had dreams about someone who was dead, maybe their spirit was not settled. Maybe there was something wrong. And so John Briggs brought this back up. They exhumed the body. They decided there was something else suspicious. And they arrested her son Thomas. And they didn't have trials in that day the way we have today. They didn't have a defense attorney or a jury. They had a jury, but what was happening was that they would have testimonies from different people that they would ask, and so the testimonies would have different things about her complaints about her son, and that he wasn't giving her enough food, he wasn't keeping her warm. She complained often about him, and so he was found guilty, and so he was hung, and later on, even after he was dead and buried, they put two other people on trial for the same murder. And one was his wife, and the other was someone that was a servant in the house. Wow. So this was an interesting case. I had found because I had found the trial transcripts that made it easy. We knew what people were saying, and we made it into a play. Wow. So we had that for the 375th. We called it The Ghostly Witness. So the Portsmouth Community Theater did that, and then later on we did that actually at the Valley Inn as a dinner theater. So that was fun. But I had to research a lot about who the people were, so that the characters, the people playing those characters, could understand, how to play their part.
Gloria, on behalf of myself and Mark, we would like to thank you for coming on the show and giving your Portsmouth history.
I always like to share Portsmouth history.
All right. Thank you very much.
And thanks to everyone for joining Rhode Island Time Capsule.
The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center is located in Newport, Rhode Island. Our mission is to nourish, educate, and support Newport County residents to improve their social, economic, and physical well-being. For more information, please visit our website at mlkccenter.org. We'd love you to come volunteer, or if you need help, please turn to us and we'll be there to support you.